Okay, well, it is morning. Um, it's morning. I'm not lying. It really is. Here we go. There's Rocky. He's been working on his bandage. He gets it changed again today, which he loves. He loves to ride in the truck and to go over and get his bandage changed. It's like it's his favorite thing. Hey, I'm being silly, aren't I? He's just giving me a look like, what the heck are you talking about? You know that's not true. Don't lie to the people. Rocky's very morally upright, He doesn't approve of lying. So I should set the record straight. No, Rocky does not like any of that. It upsets him. It really does. He's walking away now. He says, "Good. Thank you for being honest." Anyway. Oh, yeah. Um, oh boy. I'll tell you something that I have learned over the years. And it took me a long time to figure this out. But I did learn it. And Rocky's at the door. He wants to go out. He was at the door earlier and I didn't let him out. I better do it now, I guess, eh? And, yeah, one thing I've learned anyway. Okay, Rocky. Hold on, sweetheart. He's at the door. Do you want out? You want to go out? Yeah? All right, hold on a minute here now. Got to pull the cover down off the top there. See the gap? There's a huge gap there. It's a gap. I'm not sure what you can see, but there's mosquitoes flying around too. Here we go. Let's let him out here. There he goes. Hey, that's my Rocky. Let me take a look too to make sure there's nothing out here that... He loves rainwater. See, that thing's full of rainwater. And that's what he's doing. He's drinking the rainwater. Here we go. We'll put the thing there like that. He's drinking the rainwater is what he's doing. He's got a bowl of water in here. I actually just changed his water. Oh, there we go. So you can't walk through here without knocking shit over. It's just one of those things. Anyway, I changed his water. His water was really dirty because he washes his feet in it. He does. He washes his feet in his water, the crazy nut. Anyway, getting back to what I was talking about, this thing here might be good to put the milk bottles into when I put them up for sale. I'm going to sell most of them, really. I'll keep a few, but I'm going to sell most of them. I don't need dozens and dozens of glass milk bottles, I really bought them more for the wire cases, for the wire boxes. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying earlier, one thing that I've learned in life, and I've learned this through hard experience, and it was a hard lesson. It took me a long time to learn it, but I did learn it, so bully for me, I guess. What I did learn, though, was that when bad things happen, when shit happens, as they say. I'm just looking at these up here, trying to figure out, because I got to remove this. I got to remove all this. I can't put my roof on my porch with that there. But one thing that I did learn, though, from all of it was that all the bad things that have happened is that there's a reason for everything. Sometimes that reason is to teach us a lesson. Sometimes that reason is to force us to change, to go to another situation or to change what we're doing or the way we're doing it, because we're doing things that aren't working for us, but we've fallen into a state of comfort in a way. Even if it isn't working, and even if we don't necessarily like the results, we've fallen into a state of comfort, and so we continue to do what we do. And also there's a fear of the unknown. If I change, what sort of a situation might I be going into? You know, and like that. So there's all of that to consider too. I'm going to put my boots on here. But anyway, the thing is, I've had this experience several times in life where circumstances forced me to make changes that I wouldn't otherwise have made. And changes I was afraid to make. And because I did that, though, because I was forced to, not because I volunteered or wanted to. Look at this cat. Not because I volunteered to, not because I wanted to, and certainly not because I embraced the change at the time. In many cases, I was scared of the change. But because I was forced to make it, I did end up better off in certain ways, and I ended up learning things along the way that I wouldn't have learned had I not changed, and so on, And so, in some cases, change is made. A forced change comes about because it kind of has to. Now, that tree there, see that tree? That's an apple tree, or it was. When it was alive, it was an apple tree. Let's see if I can get it in the picture here. See how it goes? And then there's a sharp curve, and then another sharp curve. That looks like it was forced to grow that way. It does, it looks like it was actually made to grow that way. And it's dead now. It's totally dead. Look at that. It's ready to fall down. Like it's really dead. Now, I've used this as a perch for the various tin and plushie and other type animals that I have here. When I do my music videos, I have used that as a perch for them because it's a perfect perch for them. But it's getting ready to fall down now. But that tree, I believe that what that tree is a native Indian trail marker. And if I'm right... Hi, Rocky. What are you looking at, sweetheart? Is there something back there? There probably is. He's paying attention to it, so there probably is. Anyway, if I'm right, that means that I'm smack dab in the middle of an old Indian trail, which is kind of interesting. And it also might explain some of the strange carrying on that's happened here at night. The disembodied voices and just the overall weird feeling, that I get when I'm here, when I'm out here at night. Because you gotta figure there will be some spiritual energy to a place like that, But see, what the native Indians used to do, for anyone who isn't aware, when we go down a highway or an interstate or whatever, in the States they call them interstates, the big highways. Here we call them 400 series highways. But, of course, in England they call them motorways. They have the M, whatever it is, motorway, whatever it is, and so on. But when you go down a public road of any kind, street, highway, interstate, motorway, 400 series highway, whatever, there are signs. So you'll see a sign up. It'll say so many miles or so many kilometers to the next town, such and such a town, so many miles away from where you are now. Maybe you'll see a sign that says, gasoline, food and accommodation, next right, or whatever, You'll see a sign that says, rough road ahead. You'll see a sign that says road closed ahead. You'll see a sign that tells you about some wildlife danger. There may be a lot of deer in an area or whatever, that could run out in front of your car. You'll see a sign warning you of that. You see speed limit signs. You see stop signs, regulatory to regulate traffic. You'll see signs like that. Well, the Indians didn't have that. They weren't putting up a sign that said, there's I don't know, there's food and accommodation over here, or there's water over here, or they didn't have like a wooden sign with words on it that would say that. That's not how it was, or a tin sign with words on it, or whatever. But what they did is they marked their trails with these trees. Then what they do is they'd force the tree to grow a certain way, and then they knew what that meant. They knew if you see a tree that's growing this way, it means that there's water up ahead, for example. Because if you're riding a horse, we'll say, any kind of a beast of burden, they needed water. So okay, there's a river up ahead. Well, actually, if you were to follow this, say if you were to go from where the tree is over there, if you were to go back and around, go kind of do an arc around that way, you would come to a river. There actually is a river back there, but you gotta, or a creek, I think it's more of a creek really, but you gotta go, so there's water. So that tree might have been to say, hey, there's water. There's water ahead, if you need water, there's water ahead. Or whatever, And so the thing is, now I don't know if that is an Indian marker tree. It looks like one to me. I've seen pictures of them and it looks like one. It may not be. It may be something completely different. Maybe it just grew that way for some other reason. But it looks like one to me. But anyway, that's another story. I just wanted to bring that up too, about the fact that there could be a lot of spiritual energy in this area, just due to the fact that this was basically a highway at one time for the native Indians, if that's what it was. And I have a suspicion it is. Look, Rocky's doing some climbing. I haven't seen him climb like that in a while. I haven't seen him run recently, but I haven't seen him climb like that. Now, you be careful, because if you get up on there, on that blue thing there, you're going to knock all my bottles down, because it's not very stable, sweetie. Yeah. No. No, don't go up there, sweetheart. Hey, don't go up there. Hey, you. That's good climbing, though. You're a very good climber, Rocky. You are. Yes, you are. You're an excellent climber and an excellent jumper, too. This cat can jump, I'll tell you. You should see him. Well, you have seen him, actually, because I've showed him jumping on videos. Anyway, getting back to what I was talking about, even this latest situation that happened, where I was living in a house that I rented from my former employer. He was my employer when I rented it from him, and then he became my former employer. But anyway, even with that, when I was renting that house and then he sold it out from under me, there was a bunch of dirty tricks played there. There were a bunch of lies told, and it wasn't right. And, and the guy's a bit of a fly-by-night outfit. But the thing is, that was an unsustainable situation. The house wasn't insulated, and the cost of heating oil is out of this world in this country. And so I was going deeper and deeper into debt every winter to keep the house heated. That was the first thing, especially after I didn't have the job anymore. I quit the job, but really I was pushed out. I wasn't fired in a direct way, but they just made it so hard for me to work there that I quit. That's basically what happened. But the thing is, though, what I did learn from all of it, from that experience, is that things do work out. Like, for example, prior to being homeless, I was afraid. I'd never been homeless before. That was a new thing for me. And so I was afraid. And not only was I was afraid, plus, you know, I was, so I was afraid about that. And with some reason, it's not like there's no reason to be afraid of being homeless. There are issues with being homeless. So, I mean, I was afraid, and I had some justification in being afraid. But also, oh, there's Rocky again. Hi, Rocky. Also, what I found is that, also, though, yeah, like I say, I was afraid of being homeless. And for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, something like that, I stayed in a tent in the woods behind Walmart. I had animals trying to get into the tent at night. I had, sometimes people would wander back there. I was always afraid of getting caught and being put out of there. One time, somebody took their dog around back there and let him out of the car. I think they let the dog out of the car to take a shit or something. And the dog went into the woods. Now, I had made a trail back to my camp, but I made the trail in such a way that you couldn't look directly down the trail and see my camp. Like, the trail kind of went to the side and around and then snaked its way back and stuff. So the trail wasn't a straight trail, and that's a good tip for you if you're ever in that situation. You don't want your camp to be visible from some public space, because somebody's going to come and put you the hell out of there very quickly if it's visible from a public space. Most people really don't care, especially nowadays, because you see so much of it because of the hardship, you know, and the way things are. But it only takes one to raise hell about it, and there's always one who will, and then you're done. So, you know, you don't want to be too visible. That's the thing. You don't want to be visible from a public parking lot or whatever. It's not good. But what I did is I made my trail in such a way that if you were standing at the end of it, you couldn't see my camp, you know. And so, and the trail itself even was not all that obvious, the way I made it. But anyway, the dog found my trail and started to go down it. And I could hear the owner of the car yelling at the dog to come back, and the dog wouldn't come back. The dog would kind of, and the dog got close enough that I could see it. Like, at some point, he snaked his way around, and he got close enough that I'm standing there at my camp, and I'm looking at this dog. And he's looking at me, and I can hear the owner yelling from the parking lot. And I'm thinking, if he comes back here to retrieve his dog, he's going to see my camp, and then who knows what will happen, you know. I mean, he may then raise hell and get me thrown out of here or whatever, you know, and that was my concern. So I remember it being a very tense moment. Anyway, me and this dog looking at each other, and the dog started to bark. And the owner didn't come to retrieve the dog, and eventually the owner yelled at the dog enough that the dog reluctantly turned around and went back. Now, lucky for me, the dog couldn't talk, so he wasn't able to tell the owner that he had seen a hobo camping back there, but still, that was one scary moment for me anyway. I was really fortunate that that I didn't get caught back there and end up being thrown out of there or whatever. But, and then a friend of mine who I knew through my days of working for the auctioneer, who had thrown me out of the house because he rented the house then. He sold the house. That's what happened, because the property values went up like they did. Anyway, he invited me to come and camp here. He had to get his mother's permission because it's his mother's property, really. She wasn't too sure about it, but she granted permission, and so I came to stay here. Now, at first, she was quite suspicious of me, which is understandable, but we get along good now anyway, you know, and stuff. And I've shown that I'm not just here to use people, and I'm not just here to take advantage, and I'm not just here, you know. And I've proven myself to be an asset, I think, here, you know, that I do things around the property and so on, and make things better wherever I can, and help out wherever I can. And that just comes naturally to me anyway to do that. But the thing is, it turns out being forced to leave that house was a good idea, because I was going more and more into debt. Plus, relations between myself and my former boss, and especially his wife, his common law wife, weren't good. So his common law wife really didn't like me, and he really didn't like me either at that point. And so basically I was renting a house that I couldn't afford to stay in anymore. I was going into debt to stay there, deeper and deeper in debt. Every winter I was going deeper and deeper in debt to stay there, from people who despised me at that point. Really, these people did not like me. And so, you know, it was a weird kind of a situation anyway. And so it was a dysfunctional situation, and it came to an end. I would have kept on doing it if I hadn't been forced to change, though, because I was frightened of homelessness, and I couldn't afford to pay rent anywhere else. Plus, I've had so many bad experiences with landlords. I've had some awful landlords, and I really didn't want to start again with another landlord and go through all kinds of crap with them. And so, for me, there was a lot of fear connected with that. But here I am, 4 years later. That was in 2021. We're now in 2025. I'm still alive. I've learned a lot. It's aged me. This situation has definitely aged me, because there's a lot of hardship. Living is hard when you're living this way. But I've learned a lot of stuff. I've connected with a lot of people I wouldn't have connected with otherwise. And I've had some really good experiences from doing this. And this is something that I would have been, that I wouldn't have done had I not been forced to do it. So there's an example right there. Yeah. Anyway, that's it. That's about it. That's all I wanted to say. We're up to 22 minutes now, so I'm going to shut this down. But, these things that happen in our lives, they happen for a reason, even if we don't know what that reason is at that moment in time. And we get through them, because we're adaptable. Human beings are very adaptable. That's one of the reasons we went to the top of the food chain and so on, is because when we couldn't eat one thing, we'd eat something else. We weren't like some animals that just, they have to eat frogs, and all they can eat is a frog. And if there are no frogs, they starve to death, so if all the frogs go away, that animal starves to death because it only eats frogs, and it isn't capable of eating anything else. Well, that's not the case with us, The same is true for shelter. There are some animals that will only live under the leaf of a specific plant or something, and when that plant goes away, for whatever reason, they don't have shelter anymore. See, with a human being, if you can't live in one thing, you live in something else, If you lose your brick house, you build a house of sticks or whatever, That's what we do. You move into a friggin' cave, or you find an abandoned school bus in the middle of the woods and you move into it, or whatever, or you pitch a tent, or whatever you got to do. And see, we're very versatile. We survive. We don't always like it. It isn't always comfortable. It isn't always what we want. But we do it, And that's the thing about being human. That's why we ended up kind of at the apex of things. course, now what's happening is stupidity is taking over, and we're basically killing ourselves with stupidity and living in a fantasy world and everything else, and not taking care of business properly. So, but you see, that's what happens too. If we get too comfortable, then we become incompetent. And that's what's happened in a lot of countries in the world, including Canada, is we've become incompetent. And now we're getting a taste of reality. We're starting to have to live the way our grandparents lived during the Depression and stuff, Anyway, I got chores to do. Dumping the slop bucket being one of them. So I gotta go. All right. We'll see you later.